Okay, so let's just dive right into this. We usually think of the past as something that's, well, locked away, right? Done. But what if parts of it aren't just preserved? What if they're just waiting to wake up? Today, we're going to look at what happens when the planet's own deep freeze starts to thaw out.
24,000 years. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. It's so big, it's almost impossible to really picture. We are talking about a time when woolly mammoths were still a thing.
And believe it or not, for one tiny little creature, that's exactly what it was. It wasn't death, it wasn't extinction. It was just a nap. A nap that lasted through the entire rise of human civilization as we know it.
So our story really kicks off with a discovery that is it's mind-bending. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but I promise you, this is very, very real. An actual animal frozen solid during the last ice age is alive. Today.
Okay, so picture this. You're drilling into this ancient frozen ground in one of the most remote places on the entire planet. And you're not searching for fossils or bones, you are looking for actual life. And deep down in that icy soil, scientists pulled out a core sample, and it was holding a secret.
Let's break this down. So what did they find? The creature is something called a bdelloid rotifer. It's a microscopic animal that honestly was already known for being incredibly resilient. It wasn't dead, but in the state of like suspended animation. And the result? After 24 millennia on ice, it thawed out. It started moving, and get this, it was hungry.
And right here, this is the question that changes everything, right? I mean, it's one thing to survive a tough winter. It is something else entirely to survive dozens of ice ages. So how? What is the biological trick that makes this incredible feat even possible?
So let's get into the science, because this really is the ultimate survival trick. It's a kind of biological superpower that only a few organisms on Earth have, and it's the absolute key to understanding how this little creature pulled off its 24,000-year stunt. And that superpower has a name, cryptobiosis. It literally means hidden life. And this isn't just, slowing down. We're talking about a complete and total shutdown. Every measurable biological process just grinds to a halt. The organism is basically paused in time, completely shielded from the damage that freezing would normally cause.
This is the perfect way to think about it. It's just like when you put your laptop into hibernation mode. It uses almost zero power, but all your stuff is saved, right? It's ready to pop back up the second you wake it. That is exactly what this rotifer did with its own body.
And you can see how simple a process looks on the surface. First, the freeze hits, and boom, metabolism just stops cold. Then, as things start to thaw, all those life processes begin to restart, kind of like a machine slowly booting up. And finally, it revives. It's fully functional, ready to go. And here is the most incredible part of the whole story. It didn't just wake up all weak and confused. No, the very first thing it did was start to reproduce by cloning itself. This proves it wasn't just technically alive, it was perfectly viable, as if absolutely no time had passed at all. Amazing.
And this is where the story takes a turn, from a cool scientific marvel to a real global concern. I mean, look, the rotifer is a complex, multicellular animal. So if it can survive the deep freeze, what about simpler things, potentially more dangerous things?
Yeah, this one little discovery is part of a much bigger, much more worrying picture. Because as the world's permafrost thaws faster and faster, we are finding out that the rotifer is definitely not the only thing down there.
Yeah, it was not alone. That whole frozen archive of ancient life is beginning to open up, and it's starting to release its secrets.
Some scientists are calling it Pandora's box. They're finding these so-called zombie microbes reanimating in Alaska. They're discovering prehistoric viruses that haven't seen the sun in tens of thousands of years. And they're unearthing bacteria that our species has never, ever come into contact with in our entire history.
This really shows you why this is such a uniquely modern threat. Back then, a pathogen was just trapped in the ice. It was an isolated problem. But now, with the permafrost thawing all over the world and with modern air travel, that exact same pathogen could be in New York or London or Tokyo within days. And for these ancient things, we have zero immunity. And that, right there, is the real kicker. That's the greatest danger. Our immune systems have spent thousands of years building up a defense against the diseases of our world. We have no playbook for these ancient pathogens. It would be a threat we've never seen before.
So we're left with this really unsettling question.
We started this whole thing with a tiny, miraculous little creature waking up from a very, very long nap. But its awakening is really a warning sign of a much bigger change happening to our planet. The past is literally coming back to life. And the only question is, are we ready to meet it?